This is Beyond the Resume, the podcast that brings you the stories, advice, and insights behind some of the most successful people in real estate. Beyond the Resume is brought to you by Jackson Lucas Executive Search, the industry leader in human capital solutions. Here is Chris Papa and Lisa Flicker.
Alex Valente, welcome to the podcast. I know you have a really fun way of saying it. I want to make sure I'm saying it okay. Does that sound?
How my friends say it, Valente.
It sounds like a celebration, so I love it. That's wonderful. Thanks for coming on the podcast. So
Thanks for having me.
I wanted to start with just talking about you're a New York native. We know that that's where I am, but you moved over to the West Coast. So what happened?
I moved here 20 years ago, July 12th. After, I don't know, a chain of life events brought me out here, but I came out here to be a professional actor, like every good real estate developer, 20 years ago. And it was a great decision that actually my dad helped me make because I was doing the acting thing in New York. I was like, maybe it was killing him that I was doing it. And he was like, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to give it up. I feel like I need to move to LA to see if I can really do it. He's like, well, then move. So get it out of your system.
There's a famous Matthew McConaughey quote where he says when he goes to tell his father that he wants to be an actor, and you might know it well, his father, who's a very big business person, says, all right, well then, just don't half-ass it. So I think that's right. If you're going to do it, you do it all the way.
So we did it. We moved out here. It was a great run. I was teaching tennis as my day job. And the tennis is kind of what kind of connected me into the commercial real estate industry. Because it turns out I had a bunch of, real estate developer clients because they all had tennis courts in their homes. And then one of them, who's like my mentor, frankly, still very close with to this day. I had dinner with him this week, Tom Safran, said, hey, why don't you, I was thinking about transitioning out of the acting. I was actually looking at grad school. I was applying to business schools in New York, back in New York City. I got rejected from NYU and Columbia, but I got into SC and UCLA. It's like the only thing that UCLA people have in common with SC people. We all got into USC. But I went to UCLA. I'm a Bruin, a proud Bruin. And I was thinking about going back for grad school, thinking about kind of changing the trajectory of my life. And Tom said, hey, why don't you, who I was teaching tennis to, because we all went to the same college, Trinity College, which, by the way, we are in the national championship game this weekend for D3 basketball. Pretty cool.
Nice. Is that part of the March Madness?
It's for D3, but yes.
Excellent. I'll root
so root for them. Tom said, hey, why don't you go out with one of my guys and just see if you like this, commercial real estate development thing. I was like, sure, Tom. So I go meet one of his guys on site in Englewood, and I wear khakis and a button down, and he's like, I meet this guy, and he brings me for a walk. Steven, he brings me for a walk, and he hands me like a hard hat. I put the hard hat on. I'm like walking around the job site, and people like think I'm some sort of executive, so like they're like looking up to me. And I kind of tell people, sometimes I go back and speak at UCLA, but I kind of tell people it felt like Harry Potter and the Sorting Hats. And I put this hard hat on. I was like, ooh, I like this. And basically, I did it a few more times. Tom gave me an internship. This is over 15 years ago. And I've basically been working in development for the last 15 years. I ended up going to UCLA, graduated. I loved it over there. I'm still super involved. And I've been working in development. I got this great job that I kind of maybe tricked my way into with Trammell Crow Company 13 years ago. And here I am.
But they say it's better to be lucky than good, right? Although
exactly.
I'm very good. So I want to just quickly, before we jump into your new career, talk about, so I was looking at your background, and it looks like on your IMDb page, you were part of As the World Turns, The Young and the Restless, Cold Case, Planet B-Boy. Tell us a fun Hollywood story before we jump into the world of real estate.
I was on a bunch of soap operas in New York and LA, a couple cool TV shows out here. Honestly, I booked my two biggest jobs in the entertainment world while I was in business school because they always love you when you're leaving. So I booked these great parts on Cold Case. I was the the rookie cop on the last season of Cold Case. My character description was cocksure dimwit, which they told me I was perfectly cast for. And I was on this pretty cool show called Happy Endings, where I played like this Italian lover, which was a lot of fun. And I guess, and Planet B Boy, that was a movie I produced with a couple friends of mine. It was a documentary on breakdancing that I'm really proud of. And I actually used it to kind of concoct my entire like essays to business school, because they actually often compare producing and exec producing a movie to doing development. They got a lot of sort of a lot of the same similar skill set, and like just this rallying folks around a vision. So that was, who knows, I didn't even realize it at the time, but maybe a training ground for what I'm doing now. And by the way, just for the record, I'm like completely in love with what I do now. So I feel really, really lucky to do what I do. I feel really lucky to work for Trammell Crow Company, the oldest, best, biggest developer in the country. Just sort of feels like I'm on this like fun little trip that I'm just going to keep going with so until it crashes and burns. But right now it's going well.
That's great. And, I think when you love something, it's almost interesting. Like you have a career, you realize that maybe that's not the career for you. You pivot into something you love. And I feel like it doesn't feel like work in the same way as it might if you started doing it when you were in college.
And it all goes back, honestly, I think, to like the commitment around the acting thing, and my dad just saying with 2 feet, just go do it. And I did it, and then kind of look where I ended up. I think if I had kind of half-assed it, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, who knows where my life would have ended up. But there's like something kind of magical that happens when you just commit to something.
I agree with that. So tell me, a lot of the people who listen to this podcast are people who are either students thinking about getting into real estate, or young folks in real estate. And the reason we do this is to kind of give them just a vision of, like, it's not always a straight line, right? It's not always you graduate from college and you're an analyst associate, move up the chain. And obviously you've had an interesting path. Tell me a little bit about what it was like starting out in real estate. And was that during the years when there was a lot of development happening? I think it was, if I am doing my math correctly.
I got in and started business school in 2010, right? So right out of the GFC, and I graduated in hindsight, was a pretty phenomenal time, like in 2013, where things were just kind of like starting to open up and ramp up. And so it was kind of again, kind of better to be lucky than good. Kind of like cap rate compression when you're trying to sell a deal. So, I mean, advice for anyone getting into it is, just get in the door, go work for someone who is good at what they do. I mean, for me, having a chance to intern for Trammell Crow Company was like an incredible, opportunity that I was pushing really hard to get, 15 years ago. Because when you're just learning, there's nothing better than like learning from the best and just figuring out, okay, do you do? How do the pros do it? So that was kind of my thinking going in. You know, I think we have some statistic that we always share that like we've got about 20 offices across the US, and like the folks that run each office have about, 20 to 30 years average experience. And the average experience of everyone in each office is probably 15 to 20 years. So like you're just learning from people who've been doing this a long time, know what to look for, know what to watch out for, and frankly, take a little pride in kind of teaching it. So, because they're kind of grooming young folks like me, at least I was, 15 years ago, to be here
Still
and to stay
young.
here. Thank you. Um, and it was just like an incredible opportunity to learn from people who know what the heck they're doing. When you're coming out of school, yeah, if you can be a 25-year-old, 22-year-old, whatever you are, and just do everything you can to help out in any way, shape, or form, great, do it. I think, getting some finance skills and getting some job in finance is also a nice, reasonable way to transition into development. We hire, a lot of what we like to joke are like recovering architects and recovering engineers onto our team, because we spend so much time kind of managing projects where we're working with architects, engineers, contractors. We have a lot of those folks on our team who know that world, who can ensure that, we do things on time and on budget, all these things that mean a lot to a lot of people, especially our stakeholders and our investors.
Yeah, that's a good breeding grounds. I feel like the architects often don't know what their career is going to be when they first when they kind of sign up for architecture school and they think it's going to be that they're a developer.
Probably to some extent. I'm not an architect, but I think, look, it's nice being on the developer side, especially for like a big reputable company. It's also a real tough game. If doing it on your own is like no joke, kind of things with like personal guarantees on homes and things like that. If you're actually doing ground up development, it's a risky kind of blood sport type of business, but really nice to do it. I think, with folks that have been doing it a really long time, almost 80 years now that Trammell Crow Company has been in business, and doing it, with backing, so we're a wholly owned subsidiary of CBRE. So having kind of that kind of like corporate Fortune 125 backing is really kind of incredible and really necessary to do the types of projects, the scale of projects that we do in general. And then for me personally, it's a lot of fun to work on. I get to go work on all these cool, amazing projects on like huge sites and beautiful metros that have a huge impact on the communities in which they are. We do a lot of public private partnerships, and you really can't get access to those types of projects unless you work for some of the bigger developers, in a region, because there's so much at stake for the cities, for the municipalities that select folks through us, usually through a public process called like an RFP or RFQ into an RFP. They need some certainty. They need to, select folks that have done it before, because there's so much riding on these, sort of what can be these iconic sites and great neighborhoods and great locations that mean a lot to a local community.
Right. Makes sense, right? The risk you're taking with a development, if you hire somebody who doesn't have that level of.
Then you're going backwards 3 years just to get back to the starting line, and that would be, a disaster for
Right.
for a lot of folks.
So I'm sure you've done a fair amount of projects ground up. What is the favorite? Is there a favorite child in there?
What do they always say? Love the one you're with. So right now we just finished a 137 unit mixed use project called Vivo on Harbor. It's in San Pedro, which sits at the southern tip of the city of Los Angeles, directly across from the port of Los Angeles, which is the biggest port in the Western Hemisphere with almost a $3 billion annual budget. And we have this great site right across the street from the port. That we just delivered in January of this year, 2025.
Congrats.
It's Thank you. Super exciting. We love San Pedro. We have another project actually kind of behind it, but we're really big believers in the port, really big believers in really what's sort of the last undeveloped waterfront in Southern California. And we've got this amazing project that we delivered in January that we're, 20% leased on right now. Kind of sits on the corner of Fifth and Harbor Boulevard, if you know your San Pedro. And we have this amazing sourdough bakery pizza concept on the ground floor that we're so proud of and so excited about, called Colossus. They opened February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day. And it's basically kind of been a smash hit. The locals like it, which makes us really kind of proud. And folks are kind of coming from over the region to, one, not only eat at Colossus, but two, to come, live in our project. It's really fascinating. I'm so curious about kind of who are all these people that come live in our projects. It's always kind of one of the funnest things in Elisa. But yeah, that's probably my favorite child right now. But we've got a few others that we've developed and delivered over the years. But right now, really focused on San Pedro and really focused on Vivo and Harbor.
Nice. Is it a mixed use project? So it has retail, multi.
It's mixed use. It's 98% apartments with 137 apartments, but we have this kind of corner retail there of like just under 1,500 square feet. But it's really a great corner, and there's nothing worse than delivering a mixed use project and having an empty retail on the ground floor. It just feels like such a black eye for the community. You could always, probably put some cool signage up and kind of position around it, but it's way, way more exciting when you have this amazing concept that we have, which is Colossus, which is open, breakfast, lunch, dinner. They have this cool pizza oven concept, which is delicious. It really energizes the whole development. It energizes the whole community. It's been really fun.
Yeah, well, I've never heard of sourdough pizza before, but now I feel like you have to bring it to New York.
I think sourdough is like a trending bread right now. I think it's
I
like
think
good
it
for
is.
the guts. Yeah. And these guys have been doing it forever. So it was just kind of, again, got a little bit lucky. We hired a great retail team called Retail Insight. They helped deliver us Colossus. Colossus, they're from the Pedro and the Long Beach area. This is their third location, so they know what they're doing. They're this really kind of charming husband wife couple, and it's been a great kind of combination, call it, since we've been open together here for like a month.
That's great. Well, I'm going to have to get out there. So you did it.
Please.
Yeah, thank you. You did an interview a couple of years ago where you talked about how you entrenched yourself in the real estate business, and you said because you didn't love the authenticity of your own voice. And then you, I'm sorry to bring up old memories. Don't worry, I
It's
don't have any
okay.
like old girlfriends to bring out or something.
Oh,
This is
oh
your
no.
life, Alex. And so then you went to live for 6 months in 18 different communities. That's kind of a big
Lived in 6 places in 18 months.
places in 18 months. Okay. So what was that like?
So that was, I think, some interview I did years and years ago. That was incredible. It's so funny. I started doing apartment development, and I realized I had never lived in any of these new apartment buildings that we developed. So my comment was I kind of felt like an imposter because, like, here we are designing, developing these projects, but I've never actually lived in them. And I go do tours, but it just made me feel like not only was I like not being authentic on like my point of view, but like I just sort of felt like an imposter, and just made me feel like maybe I wasn't like gonna do a good job, and I was like insecure about it. Um, so I kind of concocted this thing to go basically live in all of our competitors' projects. I told them I got friends at our competitors, like, hey, I'm going to go live in your project and journal about it. And then I would give them notes on it, and I journaled about it. I did a podcast on it. I lived in a couple of our projects, which I loved. I'm actually gearing up in 2 weeks to move into San Pedro and move into our Vivo on Harbor project. I kind of can't now. I'm like addicted. So I will live in every project that I ever do, or we ever do, that I'm a part of. I can't not live in one of our projects, even if it's for a few weeks. So I'm going to go do it. It was all to basically kind of better understand the business, better understand the product that we're offering, why things work, why things don't work. I lived in a garden style apartment. I lived in a couple of mid-rise apartments, a wrap where you kind of walk from your parking structure over to your apartment. I lived in a podium where you park below your unit and take elevators up. I lived in a high rise. All these things that are so really interesting to think about, especially when you're designing and developing them, like how it works with the experience from, when you come home with your groceries, what does that feel like? Thinking through all of those things, thinking through move-ins, thinking through prospect tours. And I really wanted to do it kind of from like a first person perspective, first principle point of view. So I'm excited to move into Vivo and Harbor 2 here in 2 weeks. But that was what that interview that I did a few years ago was about.
You know what? It sounds so obvious, but I think you're the first person I've ever heard tell me that you've lived and are living in your projects. And I think it feels like, how can you deliver the best product without knowing exactly what's happening on the ground?
Yeah, and there's still ways, and people are renters like in their 20s and 30s, and then they go on to like, get married and have babies and live in homes. But like, there really is something about kind of now that I'm doing it again, 3 years later, that 18-month kind of adventure I was on was kind of through kind of before COVID, into COVID, and probably into like the end of 2020. And then I bought a house, which is always like kind of, if you can do it, it's a really tough thing to do right now with supply and demand and pricing and interest rates. But it's great, I think, for where I was in my life. But now that I'm going back 3 years later and doing it again, there really is something about kind of checking back in and just kind of seeing again, kind of, well, what's the newest thing being delivered? And we're always trying to stay at the pulse of like what folks are looking for, how to differentiate from our competitors, what works in a certain community and neighborhood. Um, it's something at this point I feel like I'm addicted, and I really think it's a great way to be at the pulse of what's going on. It's just going to be boots on the ground, which is why these big capital providers from across the country and across the world team up with local and regional developers because they really need boots on the ground. So just trying to kind of like go in with 2 feet, two boots, if you will, and go live in the communities that we're trying to develop in.
I mean, it sounds like would be so obvious. And also you get to meet the neighbors and hear what they want and hear what they, do they know you work for the company? Do they try to like give you tips and
At,
play
at
it?
this point in San Pedro, for sure, what's interesting is that we just delivered a project, and then we've got another one that we're kind of full scale designing on that folks in the community know. We've been in Pedro for 5, 6 years years now. So now, it's kind of unavoidable. They kind of know who we are. So, but like, I mean, listening is the best thing, right? Kind of going out, and if we do entitlements in a city or community outreach in a city, I mean, you get great ideas because you get people who are, may not be super happy because you can't satisfy everyone, which I've learned, which we've all learned, but you really do learn something when you listen to the concerns folks have and what they're looking for. I don't think we've ever done a project where we didn't get some sort of benefit from just going out into the community and engaging.
Great. It's great. So it looks like you're nice and comfortable there. But the weather is about to get warm. Are you ready for the hot seat?
I don't know what that is, but hit me. I'm down.
Ready. You're ready. You're ready. Good.
Born ready.
Start you off with an easy one. Do you have a book or podcast recommendation?
I love The Real Estate Game by William Porbu. He was a Harvard real estate professor for like 30 years. He actually wrote two great books, but his first one, The Real Estate Game, is like my favorite. I probably read it 3 times. I've learned something new every time. And then he wrote another great book. It was kind of a corny name. I thought like it was something about like creating and managing wealth in real estate, something like that. But he had all these great chapters on these great developers, and he even had a great chapter on Trammell Crow, where I worked. So that was pretty cool. But The Real Estate Game is definitely my go-to recommendation for real estate books.
Excellent. I'll have to check that out. And so I imagine that obviously doing development, you've probably needed to hire a fair amount of people to staff your projects. What do you look for if somebody is coming out of school and they want to be a developer? What do you look for in a candidate?
Look, I think we probably look for a certain kind of like skill set. We hire a lot of MBAs. We kind of go and kind of
Me
recruit
too.
across the country on the MBA front. But I think we're looking for people that are like super curious, super entrepreneurial, folks that just kind of figure it out because we're so busy. It's kind of mind blowing, to be honest, how busy we are between all the projects that we currently have, and then we're always looking for new ones. So you can kind of like never sleep and never stop working if you really wanted to. I don't think that'd be very healthy. But we're looking for folks that can kind of hit the ground running, have a skill set, a familiarity, with numbers, especially kind of what we call on the deal side. Um, that can come in and add value. And honestly, it's kind of like that we like working with too, right? Just somebody who's like a good person. We're kind of looking for it all in terms of who we hire, whether it's on the development management side, architects, engineers, contractors, whether it's on the deal side, a lot of NBAs call it, a lot of folks, product type specialists, looking for folks that can, be a team player, work hard towards a shared vision, bring a certain skill set, and honestly, just kind of have fun and be into it. Because if you're not into it, like honestly, the job is so demanding, hours wise, that like you're just not going to last very long if like you're just not obsessed. So I think we all kind of have the bug. Went from the acting bug to the real estate bug. Thank goodness. My dad was super happy. I made the transition kind of before he unfortunately passed a few months ago. So it's okay.
Well, I think you probably sometimes have to play a whole cast of characters when you're presenting to community boards or whatever, dealing with entitlements. So the acting probably helps.
Yeah, but you know what I would say to that? Because I kind of hear that, a lot. It's kind of like an easy punchline joke. The biggest thing I think acting maybe taught me is just the value of being authentic and like just not BSing people, not BSing points of view on numbers with capital partners, not BSing perspectives on design and experience with when we're designing projects. I don't know specifically how, parts are supposed to fit into other parts. So we have like this amazing construction and development team who's done it. But it's really about kind of capturing the authenticity, that I think makes a huge difference, kind of across the development spectrum.
That's great. And just the last question, and we touched on this a little bit, which is nobody does it alone. You've had a handful of mentors, I'm sure. It sounds like your dad obviously was one of them. But who are some of the
And my
mentors?
mom.
And your mom, of course. Never forget the mom. That's um, who have been some mentors that have helped you throughout the years?
I'll probably start first with mom and dad. Dad is the
You won
strong
my heart by
Italian
starting
silent type.
with.
Mom, I've probably been a mama's boy my whole life. Uh, they worked their butts off. They were both kind of very successful physicians who kind of started out with not very much, kind of worked their asses off till they, became pretty effing successful. And then, you move into the real estate world, I suppose. But, Tom Safran was definitely one of my kind of gave me my first start, kind of took a chance on a kind of I don't know, maybe a long haired tennis pro, which was kind of I don't
Yeah.
know. Oh yeah, at the time. And Wayne Rakovich, who also gave me an internship kind of after I worked for Tom. He passed away a few years ago. He's like an iconic developer here in Southern California. He actually has this amazing project that his company, the Rakovich Company, is continuing on in San Pedro. It's a $200 million development on the waterfront. It's a big part of the reason why maybe me personally and we got so attracted to the waterfront, because we knew what Wayne and the Rakovich Company was doing. And then we kind of positioned ourselves, kind of picking up a couple sites across the street from what was happening there. Nothing like a good tailwind of local investment to kind of position and put one of our projects nearby. But I think Wayne and Tom were definitely two mentors. And then I have a really kind of close knit real estate friend group that we spend a lot of time together. They're friends. They've kind of become mentors themselves. Again, we all kind of mentor each other. You always have a better perspective when it's somebody else's deal.
Right.
So kind of bounce off all my projects, dealings, personal dealings at work, you name it, with this kind of tight core group of what we call it, kind of our real estate boys.
I love that. Did you meet through work, or did they just happen to be friends that went into real estate?
Through all sorts of walks of life. But we've got this great text group that we've got continually every day, dozens of messages, sharing podcasts, sharing stories, sharing articles, sharing jokes. And it's just, I don't know, it was what kind of makes all this kind of fun, because we have this like literally this community that we've created ourselves. And yeah, a lot of fun. I kind of consider all those guys mentors, kind of along the way.
I find that a lot of successful people have that. They have like this core group of friends that are in real estate. And I think it's almost like a little bit of a hack to being successful, because if you have this group of people that you trust, that you're all helping each other, I feel like it's invaluable. So
It's invaluable, and I would be remiss if I left out just like the foundation, at least for myself, I guess, I created here with UCLA, and just being part of the real estate kind of group there. We're all so close, like we love each other, we all help each other, and it feels good, and it's like local. It's like pretty cool.
that's great. That's great. Well, Alex Valente, it was really wonderful to have you on the podcast. I feel like
Thanks
I could
for
talk to you
having me.
for hours. Thanks for joining.
I
And
love it. I was just gonna say, come on down to Vivo on Harbor in San Pedro. We're open. We got the most amazing, charming kind of leasing team down there. Take you out for some sourdough pizza at
I'm in.
Colossus.
It's a date. I'll be there.
I'm in.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Resume, a Jackson Lucas podcast where we take a deep dive into the career journeys of some of the top minds in real estate and equip you with the knowledge to move forward in your path towards the success you've envisioned. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Beyond the Resume. We're grateful for your support. All episodes of Beyond the Resume are brought to you by Jackson Lucas, building inclusive and diverse businesses through talent acquisition. Visit us at jacksonlucas.com.